This podcast is a production of TSA Arts Watch.
TSA's first semester is quickly coming to an end, and as we approach the new year, it brings to mind all of the traditions and performances that everybody historically loves about Toledo School for the Arts. Limitless, kaleidoscope, senior high one-acts, numerous combo, orchestral, and steel drum performances. At TSA, one of the looming elements in most students' minds is recognition. Visibility school-wide as well as to our community at large. Whether that be gracing the spotlight in an expertly choreographed dance, shredding a solo in front of an enthusiastic crowd, or having their art prominently displayed with accolades within our gallery.
However, this episode we wanted to focus on those of us that aren't necessarily in that traditional spotlight, perhaps even avoiding it in some cases. Those of us behind the scenes honing our craft, those of us hustling under the radar.
Hi everyone, my name is Aubrey.
My name is Lucas. In this second episode of the TSA Beat, we would like to welcome you to the underground.
TSA as a community is very obviously entrenched in creative arts culture. In delegating so much focus to the arts, other activities inevitably fall on the back burner, most notably sports. Though this is the natural paradigm for TSA, other schools are typically the opposite. For most students, that is the point, to have an isolated focus on their respective endeavors. And yet some students have decided to reject that binary entirely. Artists by day, athletes by night, these individuals are essentially leading a double life, mostly unseen by their peers.
Jimesha Ragland, a soft-spoken senior, is a unique figure within these four walls. Though she's a little reserved, digging deeper beneath the surface reveals a side that is fiercely competitive and disciplined in another endeavor not often thought of at this school, track and field. As one of the fastest sprinters of her age group in the entire city of Toledo, Jimesha proudly holds the position of captain for Start High School's track team, a coveted and well-earned title.
Oftentimes, while her peers are rehearsing choreography or spending time in the practice room with their instruments, Jimesha is on the track, training and grinding hard to shave fractions of a second off of her personal bests, laser-focused on her finish line.
I run track for Start. I've been doing it since freshman year. I'm a captain, so I help everybody else. We work, since I'm a sprinter, I work on sprints. I am very competitive, and to me, track isn't really like a sport. For me, it's like a lifestyle because this is something I want to go into more when I get to college. It's just not something I do for fun. That's pretty much how I look at it. It was hard because I'm not used to having to speak up and to teach everyone else. So when I had to be captain and had to help everybody and tell everybody what to do and show them and stuff, it helped me to be more open and to have to take initiative because I'm more of a quiet, laid back type of person. But as I got farther into it, I got more used to it. So it helped me to be more open and to speak up and stuff. I used to be very fast all through my childhood, and somebody told me you should do track, and I never knew we could do it in middle school. So I just decided to do it in high school, and from there I just saw that I guess I'm great at it, so I continued to pursue it. At cities and stuff, we usually are number one, so we're top dogs, but then when we got to state, it threw us back to see people as good or better than us, so it was it was eye-opening. Because when you get to state, it's just you never know how fast anybody else is until you get there. I've been trying to apply for different scholarships and get all my college applications and stuff together. So far, what me and my aunt are planning to do is to reach out to them and tell them a little bit more about myself so they can look into me, potentially give me scholarships. I either want to go to Kent State or Kentucky University. It's like hard to like juggle like what I do at TSA versus what I do outside. For like junior year, I used to like do choir, and sometimes I would have like a performance and then a track relay like the same day. So it was just like hard to bounce back and forth from one thing to another and not get them conflicted, because then I would have to like choose which one I would have to miss out on. And I'm hoping, since like football and volleyball and other sports made it work with the pandemic, they can do the same for us. When it first started, it made me like lose motivation. Like for a few months, I didn't like train at all. I stopped caring. But then I was just like got back to work, because I'm hoping we can still have a season. But with everything going on, it's like 50-50.
Anyone who's been exposed will be quick to recognize how unique and unparalleled the culture of roller derby is. The original premise is not dissimilar to a NASCAR race, but with roller skates and shoulder checking. Originally having roots dating all the way back to the 1920s, it shifted over the course of the 20th century to a raucous, often televised heavy contact sport with a penchant for its theatrical flair, akin to professional wrestling at times even. If there was an award for most punk rock sport, roller derby would certainly be a leading contender.
Roller derby enjoyed an enthusiastic revival in the early 2000s, and junior Kylie Bielecki has been playing her part carrying the torch forward. A member of a nationally competing junior team based out of Detroit, Kylie skates on, busting heads and taking names. Figuratively speaking, of course. Maybe.
I play for Detroit Junior Roller Girls, and then we have two different teams. Our varsity team is Rush Hour. I've been playing roller derby since I've been 9, so this is going to be like going in next season will be my 8th year playing. And my dad's been my coach for every one of them, so I'm always like that person that like I'm like more expected to like help everybody else, make sure everybody knows what they're doing, stuff like that. Everybody has a roller derby name and a number. So mine is Starry Skies. I've always been Starry Skies since I've been little because my middle name is Sky. And my number is 2674 because the brightest star is like 26.74. So we kind of like played with it. Yeah, it's like a whole nother like identity basically. The younger kids on my team don't know me as like my first name. They know me as Starry. It's like a lot of different sport combined into one. There's not really a single sport to like compare it to. I've been on 4 national championship teams, and we played one of the California teams, and it was just like a brick wall. Like there was no getting through or anything. Like at that point we couldn't even block because they literally could just step over us. We went to practice and we practiced harder and we gained more skills and stuff from it. I don't really know how to explain it, but it's like a different breed of like people. They love being like different than other athletes. A lot of like tattoos. Most adults still do like their makeup crazy, and they want to get into like the not as like intense side of it, like the fun side. In my house and like my like side of the family, like that's all we talk about is like sports. It's weird because if you're trying to explain someone to it at TSA, like they're not really gonna be like interested or getting into it because they're more of like, no, we like theater and stuff, like I don't understand sports. So it's very different like playing all of these sports that I play and then like going to TSA and like, yeah, I'm a dance major. It's not the same. Dance has definitely like helped me improve in roller derby. So I do hip hop, so it's a lot of footwork. So then when I go on my skates, it's kind of just like second nature to be faster on my feet because of dance. It's definitely made me like unique because I don't know, if you say like you play varsity basketball, a lot of people are like, oh, okay. If you say you play varsity roller derby, everyone just starts immediately questioning you about it. Like roller derby, like how'd you get into that? How'd you start that? How long have you been playing? So it's definitely made me love what I do because I've put so much time and effort into the actual sport itself that it definitely shows when I like talk about it. Like how much that it like actually is like a part of me.
What does it mean to be strong? Some might say it depends on the circumstance. For the past number of years, DaNe'sia Barnett has been an active, competitive boxer in the Toledo area. The sport of boxing, she says, is rife with misconceptions. Misconceptions that she is constantly fighting to dispel. Instead, she strives to promote the sport's ability to develop focus, discipline, as well as profound respect for adversaries. Skills, as it turns out, that carry over into everyday life outside the ring.
I don't really talk about it that much. Like, maybe like when I'm at lunch with certain friends, I'll be like, hey, this is what happened at practice yesterday. I had so much fun. But outside of that, I don't really just openly talk about it because I personally don't know how other people feel about boxing, because people will think like, oh, you're a mean person because you like to fight, or like, no, it's not that. It's not why I want to box. It's just something that personally helps me physically and mentally. Like, maybe when somebody like openly talking about sports, then I'll probably mention it. But otherwise, I just kind of stay to myself. It actually helped me avoid conflict. Like, even though I'm fighting other people in the ring or whatever, it's like outside of that, it's like I pushed away so much conflict, or tried to avoid so much conflict. Boxing is like my outlet, and it's like I just feel like there's no reason or purpose to have conflict outside of it, because it's like nothing to me, honestly. Like, it's like I don't even argue with people anymore. Because before that, I think it was just like a lot of emotion and different type of anger inside of me that I just never release. And I just feel like boxing is also like a stress therapy too, to me. Honestly, like, boxing just made me like even more not like just hate violence. Like, even though boxing is violent to other people, and it is a violent sport because you are hitting each other, but like outside violence, it's like, okay, let's come to the ring and handle this where it's actually safe violence, I guess, a better way to say it, versus being out on the street and just, it's Toledo and it's just better. As of right now, I'm still focused more on the fundamentals and technique, because it's like, it's so much that you have to learn and put together before you actually are able to figure out your form and your style. I see moves that I still never seen before, and I'm like, how do they do that? And I'm like, because everyone has their own style. So I'm like, that is pretty cool. Like, you have to find what fits you best, do it the right way, but find what's best for you also. The speed bag is hard. It took me like maybe like 2 months to actually get a rhythm going to keep the speed bag going. Because at first I would just do it like 1, 2, and then I'll wait a few seconds and then hit it with the other hand, and then like just going slow. When I'm in percussion, it's kind of the same way when I'm doing paradiddles. I did not pay attention to how similar they were, and now it's like really noticeable to where I just can't ignore that now. It's like a level of respect thing. So even if you don't like someone in the gym or someone you're fighting, you still have to respect them regardless. And that's part of like the discipline that we get trained on in the gym too. You will be fighting your friends that you end up coming in the gym training with one day. They might get mad at you. It just happens, but you're going to be cool again.
In the vein of arduous athleticism is creativity, in which our young artists are typically just as competitive and dedicated to their ambitions. Though it's different for every individual, finding the means to create and publish has its own set of obstacles. What are the ways in which these artists have been innovating and enterprising? We sat down with a few of our very own to get a better view into the unsung toiling behind the scenes to bring their creativity to fruition.
The democratization of art through social media has created an environment that facilitates greater visibility and collaborative means for artists across the globe. Through our human ingenuity, the possibilities are endless.
Famous dancer and choreographer Twyla Tharp once said, "Art is the only way to run away without leaving home." Senior Gabe Pawlowski embodies this in a certain way. The euphoria of inspiration was very palpable in our conversation, first off. But in addition to that, it is very clear that Gabe has a vision and ambition propelling his craft. For the past few years, he has impressively taken it upon himself to infiltrate various underground scenes of Los Angeles and New York, collaborating and creating commission art for notable music acts he admires, securing valuable footholds for the climb ahead.
I would describe myself as like a digital graphic illustrative artist is what I would say. I do a mix of graphic design stuff and illustrative work with a very like somewhat edgy, bold graphic style. I liked the old Cartoon Network cartoons like Powerpuff Girls, Samurai Jack, Dexter's Lab. People like Jamie Hewlett, the guy who does Gorillas, started inspiring me to draw like more people and try and do that. And then I got really into music, and I just love like finding new people and new stuff to do. So if I can find like a song of theirs that I think I could do justice in my style, it would be very cool. I don't have any musical talent at all, and I just love music so much. It's like, I like music more than I like art, but I like making the art for the music as like a sign of like appreciation and stuff. I started doing like commissions and art stuff like on Instagram a little over like a year and a half ago, and it has just been so cool how many people I've met. I've done a lot of stuff for people in New Jersey and LA, just like a fan of a lot of people in those scenes, so I'll just draw other people without them like asking me to or like paying me to, and then that generally gets more people to do it. And one of my favorites, NASCAR Aloe, just because I drew something from him, I got so many other connections because of people who are also fans of him and liked his stuff. I'll do like album covers for people, I'll do singles, I can do flyers, posters. I've done t-shirts and stickers and different stuff like that, but I'm willing to do whatever. Like I'll do like, I want to do murals, I want to do all sorts of stuff. If I'm drawing a person, I want to make them look like as like iconic as I can, like make them feel like they're the main character of the scenario that I'm making. Even if it's like just like some weird background, or if there's actually like a background like a city or something. Or if I see somebody who looks really cool. Like I've seen so many people at TSA or just like around where I'm like, that person looks sweet. They would look really cool if I drew them like this or like in this style. And once you like get connected with all the scenes and stuff, you see so many people who have weird styles and you're like, that's sweet. I gotta do something with that. Something that I wish I knew how to do more is like clarify that I'm not like a cheap artist and that I like am worth more than like $10. I'm not gonna do it for you. And then they go to somebody else and they're like, I did it with this guy for this much. And I'm like, I'm not that guy. You're not gonna get the same thing. If you do that, more people are gonna think that that's okay to do that to somebody while buying, and then it just continues. It's like, it's happened so many times. And you have to do it like when you're smaller and stuff, but as you get like more attention, you have to set that like, and be like, hey, this is what's okay, this is not. I feel very secure with where I'm at and like with where I'm going. And I know that like, if somebody talks to me a certain way or like is obviously like looking down on me for being like, nobody knows my age or who I am. I've never posted pictures of myself on my thing. I prefer to like keep it like mysterious type thing, but like I'm not fazed by it because there's more people who are like, yeah, you're gonna get bigger. Like there's more than this. If they're looking at you like you're small now, I can take advantage of this. Like what are they thinking of for your future? It's like nothing. I'll like find stuff and it's all fresh and nice and I can find so many things that I like, but then there's times where I'm getting used to it and I'm like, when will the next thing come? And I'm like, what if it doesn't come? Like where do I go with that? Asking people for new music to listen to, trying to literally like going to like a musician I like or a celebrity that I like, and I'll scroll through their people they're following, or maybe they're like their likes or something, and I'll see who's following them, see if anybody looks cool, or even just looking through different artists' Instagrams and trying to do their style in my way. You know it's gonna come eventually, but when you want to do something right then, that's the hard part. Is like, I want to do something now. I'm feeling creative, but I don't know what I want to do. And like, that can also be like the time of like best creation too, is like when something does come, when you're like, I don't know. And you're like, oh, that has been like some of my favorite things that I've made.
Any classically trained musician understands the weight of technical accuracy in their playing, though senior Josh Lyphout is careful to emphasize the musicality as well. As a musician for hire and studying composer, Josh has trained with great effort to not only replicate historical pieces with skill and accuracy, but to also understand the profound emotional effect music can impose upon its audience.
I usually just go with cellist in general. Then there's like freelance musician, gigging musician. I'm a string player, so there's like bass, guitar. Most of my gigs are on bass guitar because every guitar player in the city cannot read sheet music, but I can, so I get their gigs. I play a lot of musicals. Summer, I'm constantly playing at least one show, probably two, maybe even three. During the school year, I try to keep it to one show at a time because things can get a little heavy, a little convoluted. Weddings on the side and like rich people events if I get called for it. But most of the income is from musicals around town. For the most part, it's me showing up to gigs and doing a good enough job to where they remember me. I feel like it's mostly just like the same way that you would interact with any of your other coworkers, because that's really what they are, coworkers, except I only see them like every few months when we end up on the same gig. This mostly started as me wanting an income but not wanting a job. So I was like 13 or 14 and I played Music Man, I think, and then I was like, I'll just email the rep because this is a thing that I can do and I need money and I don't want a job, so I emailed them, and then it's just like spiraled out of control from there. I think I've been pretty consistent for about almost a year, hoping it doesn't change. I'm getting a bachelor's in performance wherever I can get in, and then a master's and PhD in theory, and I want to be a theory professor. At least in my writing, there's like there's a distinct line between I'm writing this because it sounds good and I'm going with my gut, and the line on the other side of this is how you develop something. Breaking down the melody in my head into each of its individual little parts, and then taking it apart, putting it back together in different ways, and developing each of those little parts. My goal as a classical performer is to be historically informed so that if Bach were to come back from the dead, if he were to hear me play, it would make sense to him. Because as classical musicians, not only are we musicians, but we're historians. We're playing things from 400 years ago sometimes. Should probably sound like it's from 400 years ago. When you're playing rep that I play, it gets to be like, I'm not a very spiritual person, but like, I have no other way to describe it, of being a spiritual experience. When you're working on not technical things, you have to work on the actual music side of it. Not, am I in tune? Is this rhythm correct? You have to work on, how is this taking the audience to another world? Recently, I've been getting a lot into like French Impressionism, early 20th century, like Debussy, Ravel, and that's changing my playing in like everything else. It's a very subconscious thing. None of it is intentional. It just sort of happens. What I'm listening to and what I'm studying affects everything else that I'm playing. Like influences in my playing for cello. Recently, Janos Starker, he was Polish, and he lived through World War II. He was in a concentration camp for a few months at like 9. So even as a 9 or 10-year-old, he was already at an extreme level. And then he spent the next nearly a century of his life just finely tuning that. Till the day that he died, he never stopped practicing. And there's a quote in an interview that he did. It was like, so why do you still practice? You have an incredible amount of skill and you're one of the best in the world. Why do you practice? And he said, because I think I might be getting better. I think I might be improving.
Growing accessibility of developing technologies is one of the most auspicious features of living in the 21st century. As such, the general public is, for the most part, no longer inhibited by a lack of information or resources. Take writing, for example. Rather than investing in specific equipment and working through a publisher, people are free to write from a public library and self-publish by their own means online. A type of artistic renaissance has spurred as a result, with a diverse body of people, young and old, producing creative works they otherwise might not have been able to.
Senior Lucas Frost is all too familiar with this renaissance and expresses his joy of creating for creating's sake. Though he's known for his ventures in visual art, his work in music production is a marvel of its own. A great example of how the younger generation is utilizing that newfound accessibility.
It's like I feel like I don't do anything, but also I do everything. My primary thing with like anything I do is I'm just interested in telling a story and communicating. I came to this sort of realization maybe like last year that like really that's all art is for me, is art is communication. In like maybe its purest form, or at least it should be. I kind of have this theory that I feel like most producers, like maybe you learn an instrument when you're younger and then you learn another one and you kind of decide like you're not in it because you want to learn how to play the instrument, you're just using whatever you can to make music. What really did happen when I came to TSA and we got the iPads and I could go on GarageBand and I could just like mess around and just like make stuff, and then I decided like, oh, this is it. It's not just like composing where you have the musical ideas, and I'm interested in that as well, but like with music production, you're just making a thing, which I think is one of the most satisfying parts about any artistic discipline, is when you can say like you've made a thing and it's tangible. That was like the whole idea with the last track that I put out, is it's called Late Nights, and less to do with the content of the song and more to do, I had just finished it and it was like 3 a.m. and I'm like, this is it. Like this is the best feeling. The mixture of like textures and different techniques and using whatever media instrument, to achieve the right effect. Those things do sort of like mix together, and I see them in like the same way. Originally, I would start, like I would just like make a beat. I've been getting a lot more into writing because I'm decided to take a creative writing class this year just because I want to maybe hone in on those skills a little bit more. So recently what it's become is writing is more direct, it's an actual language, so I can figure out what the story is obviously that I want to tell, and I can write it down, and then I let those words guide my musical decisions, which is something like really interesting I've also been getting into, is like with jazz and jazz harmony, and how you construct the harmony to your song is so influential in how you hear and perceive the story. That's the current order that I sort of go in, but like if I do something like that where it's too routine, then I just I'll start getting bored of it. Like if it's too process oriented, eventually like it really just has to be something like you feel it and you're just like, I need to make a song, and it's just like you do that and you just build and build and build and build and build until you're like, okay, I guess this is done. I've made, I'd say, a significant amount of the money that I've earned in my life from art, mostly like visual art. Like I worked and I did commission work for a really long time, but music is hard. It's almost like oppressive how hard it is. Like just to upload a song to all of the major streaming platforms was like a pretty lengthy process. So the song that I put it out in like August, and I made it over the summer, so I had just a bunch of free time to do that. And school obviously limits that a little bit, but it's still like, it's just what I like have to do. I'm working on some new stuff. I really would like to put out a song maybe in the next month or so. Originally I wanted to like make an album or do some big, like cool, super ambitious thing, but right now what I'm really trying to do is just make quality singles that I can just keep putting out on a regular basis, and hopefully that can like help me gain some traction, you know. Like I definitely am so like appreciative and grateful, and like I said, it's the satisfaction of having made something tangible. And then not only that, but people being like, I listened to this. Not only did I listen to it, but I liked it. Something really interesting that was almost unexpected is in this app where you can like track your streams, like the Spotify for Artists app, you can see like essentially like all the data of the people who have streamed your music. And it was crazy to me to see that someone from both Germany and Great Britain streamed my song twice. Because, you know, Spotify's algorithm just has a way of pushing songs to people. And the person in Great Britain listened to it 2 more times. So that means they found it, and someone I don't even know, someone so like far away from me, listened to my song and liked it enough to then listen to it 2 more times. And that's super cool.
I've been looking for
The TSA Beat is a production of Toledo School for the Arts and is available on TSA streaming service ArtsWatch. You can find other TSA productions and performances on ArtsWatch by visiting ts4arts.org. That is ts4arts.org. Or find us on Facebook, Twitter, or your favorite social media outlets. Original music and score provided by Dream Louder and Lucas Frost. Backing music for Josh Lyphout's interview is Bach's Suite for Solo Cello No. 2 in D minor, performed by Josh Lyphout.
Special thanks to all of our guests, Toledo School for the Arts students, Jimesha Ragland, DaNe'sia Barnett, Kylie Bielecki, Gabe Pulowski, Josh Lyphout, and Lucas Frost. Feel free to follow and support them on their social media linked in the description. This episode is produced by Aubre, Siler, and Lucas Madrazo. Thank you so much, everybody, and we hope you tune in next time. Have a good one.